Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Friday Footy Talk. We are the A.C.E Football Academy. Coach Hamilton alongside Coach Dunham, as always. Coach, been a fun week. EPL got back underway, and a lot of the other leagues got back underway. Some have been underway a few weeks, but for you and I, the EPL is our bread and butter. So we were excited to have that get back underway this week.
Both our teams got
Yeah, I would
W's.
say Arsenal and Liverpool both
Yep.
won. Maybe not as clean as you and I would have liked, but a
True.
win's a win, right? I will say I thought Man United looked much improved. Of course, they spent about
They do.
$20 million in transfers, but they looked much better. Coach, excited for tonight. One of the things we're sticking with our training session, building that 1 hour training session. We have talked about. We opened our session with just kind of the flow, the structure. That was 2 episodes ago. If you missed it, please go back and take a listen. Last week's episode was on the intensity and chaos, right? Just making sure the controlling that energy throughout training, transitions, things like that. Tonight we're going to talk a little more just about staying on the session's main goal, making sure we stick to the objective that we entered training with. And I will tell you, Coach, that this was probably the biggest thing they harped on in the C license course, right? And I will tell you that I am, and I know this is one of your points, and it's one of your first points, so I'll go ahead and introduce it. You get in these trainings where you're like, okay, I gotta fix that hole in my back line. I gotta fix, the finishing at the net. I gotta fit. You come up with these 3 or 4 things from your last match that you're like, okay, we gotta fix all of these in this one session, and that's just not doable.
It's not doable, Coach. And I think you and I have been in the same situation where a player or a parent will come up and say, hey, why aren't you working on corner kicks? Why aren't you working on goal kicks? Why aren't you working on free kicks? Why aren't you working on... There's a lot to this game
Right.
that our players need to learn and develop. And as the coach, you've got to control the flow of every practice to where they're having meaningful sessions where they're learning and they're not having to be overwhelmed.
Right.
It's like going to school and you're learning math, science, and language arts all in the first hour of
All at the same
first
time.
period.
Yeah.
And it's just too much. And
Right.
it's going to be chaos in their brain and it's not going to stick.
Yeah.
So when you go into your training sessions, hopefully you've written something out. We've talked about this many times already. It could be, hey, we're working on first touch today. And you're going to say the word first touch 1,000 times in that practice. You've been working on possession. And you have key points that we're going over. But you don't want to say, hey, we're going to work on possession today, but we're going to end with crossing and finishing. That kind of ruins the whole point of your practice. And I know kids love to shoot and score, but the whole idea is to focus on one thing where there's that buildup. We talked about this previously about our structure. We're building up and we're increasing our intensity to when we get to the final 20, 30 minutes of practice. We are scrimmaging and working on the things we did in that practice.
Yeah, absolutely, and you nailed it, right? That's what this is all about. And so I will say that U.S. Soccer provides a coaching framework, right? And it breaks down the game into attacking and defending, and then attacking to defending transition and defending to attacking transition, right? So it breaks it down into those 4 categories, and it gives you, by age group, here's what these kids should be able to do at 11v11. Here are the skills they need to do it, right? And so that is where these objectives should come from. And maybe this is where we should have started tonight. But that's where these objectives should come from. Use the U.S. Soccer resources that they provide. It's called the Player Development Framework. And it gives you all these moments where you can look and go, oh, that's where I'm struggling. And then in the next, it gives you subcategories, right? So you can break it down. Okay, which subcategory am I in? And then it gives you those vocabulary, as you kind of mentioned, that you have got to harp on for the entire training session. So you pick that objective, hopefully based on your last match or the last weekend's matches. Maybe you haven't played yet, so you're just using last season, or you're just using a broad horizon. Hey, on Monday and Wednesday, we're running attacking stuff, and on Friday and Saturday, we're doing some defending stuff, or whatever it is. Or one week, we're going to work on attacking, the next week, we'll work on defending. And so you do it that way. But I think it's so important to be able, and again, I know this is going to lead into your next point, but being able to look at your players and say, hey, here is our focus tonight, right? I know we want to work on, kind of what you said. I know we want to work on, or I know we need to work on corners. I know we need to work on finishing at the net. But we can't possess the ball in the middle third. So our focus tonight is going to be breaking the lines from the middle third into the attacking third. That's our focus.
And I love that you brought this up. It's not even in our notes here, Coach, but when you start your practice, you should be starting out with what your objective is for that day's practice. And I think you do this. You completely changed how you start your practices about your board. I would literally go through what our whole practice session is going to be.
Yep.
This is what we're going to do in our warm-up. This is what we're going to do in a small-sided game. And this is how we're going to end our practice today.
Yeah.
So they have an idea. And again, I'm going to go back to the possession. They're going to hear me say, good first touch, 1 and 2 touch only, body positioning, everything we need to be talking about when it comes to possession.
Yep.
I'm going to repeat that phrase and those key words at least 100 times in that practice.
The only thing that I do a little differently, and I don't know whether this is right or wrong, it's just different, right? And you and I talk about our differences all the time in coaching. So my warm up is always the same. My captains take control of that, and I'm not even around. I'm setting up my stuff, right? Then I get into my play, train, play that we've mentioned and we talked about in the structure part of this podcast, or part of this series. And I put them into that first play, right? And I'm just like you said, I show them what we're doing. I use the board, but then, but that's all I say. I don't, well, depending on what we're doing, sometimes I will go ahead and give the objective, sometimes I won't. But that's all I do is I give the objective, right? Mm-hmm. And so then they go into the first play. And maybe we're running a 3v2 or whatever it is, right? They go into the first play, they're running it. After that first play, that's when I bring them back. So now we're getting ready to get in the train. And then I will ask them. I do very little coaching in that first play. But I use your words, right? Mm-hmm. Hey, we have to engage the defender. Hey, we have to drive the ball forward. Engage that defender. Like, hey, Chris, why are we getting rid of that ball so fast? You didn't even engage that defender. Then when we get back together, I ask them, all right, what word are you already sick of hearing? And so now I'm asking them, what are you noticing I'm harping on tonight? And then they'll say, you said engage a lot. You said drive a lot. You said find the space a lot, right? And then I say, okay, so based on that, what do you think we're working on? And then we have that discussion, and then boom, here's the objective. And then that's when I go in, hey, here's our train. Here's what we're doing for the train. And then we'll finish. Most of the time I finish with some sort of full-sided, but as you mentioned, with a focus on driving the ball forward or whatever it is.
Coach, you said a lot of stuff.
I did, sorry.
No, and I love it. The point I'm getting into is if you're old like me, and you're forgetful sometimes. And Coach, I think we've mentioned this in every episode in this series. Write down, draw out your lesson plans.
Yep.
I'll draw diagrams, and I'll have keywords out to the side of that diagram, and I'll have explanations of how I'm going to break things down. I'm going to write down the dimensions. This box needs to be 15 by 15. Yep. I'll have the keywords. I'm going to have how many players I need in that box. And I'm going to tell you what, Coach, if you come up to me in practice, guess where that lesson plan is going to be?
Yeah.
In my pocket.
Yep.
And if I need it during the water break, oh yeah, those are the key points I almost forgot. We've got a lot of stuff we've got to go over. And I need that in my hand sometimes to be like, oh, that's the keyword I almost forgot. It keeps me from forgetting and make sure I get all those keywords, all those important factors that those kids need to learn for that day. So please get in there. Write and draw out your entire lesson plan. Put it in your bag. Put it in your pocket. Have it with you while you're walking around the field. If a player asks you, Coach, what do you got there? I'm like, oh, look, this is what we're doing all day.
Yep.
See, this is what I do to get you guys ready.
Yep.
This is me focused and locked in. Are you matching my level of focus for this practice?
Yeah, absolutely. So I love that you said that, and we are Duktig, is that how I say that? We are we are ambassadors for them. They have some great products for this, so I'll give them a quick shout out real quick. The first thing they have is these books where this one's got a little wet, but it has place to write on one side. It's got the field set up on the other. Great. So now I can design the drill, but then also take the notes, as you mentioned, the field dimensions, things like that. Recently, I've moved to one of these. This is just a full-sided board, and that's what I use. All of these are available, but Coach, you are 100% right, and you have to write these things down because you get into those moments and you forget, like, oh wait, how was this passing? Where was this ball supposed to go next in this passing, right? Because you do so much, and most of us are still working full-time jobs anyway, and things just happen where you forget. But going back to our first point, for me, having it written down and having that objective in front of me the entire practice helps to prevent me from getting off of that objective.
Yeah, and it's important not to get too detailed. When we're talking about key points or key words you're saying, it might be 3 to 5 for the entire practice. You shouldn't have 10, 15, 20 different keywords. It's going to be too much. And again, you're getting back to overcoaching and kind of getting away from that detailed focus.
Another way to look at that, Coach, and again, most of us are working full-time jobs and we don't have time to do this, right? But if you are one of those detailed-oriented guys or girls or coaches and you like that kind of detail, again, this takes more time, but what you do is you set your practice schedule. Here's how I'm doing my practice schedule. But then in your play, train, play, you also have these other side activities that if the training I'm running, if it's too hard, what am I going to fall back on? Right? If it's too easy, what can I go to? Right? What adjustments can I make to help better fit my objective?
Basically, progressions or regressions, depending on how the focus goes.
Yep, absolutely.
And when you're doing each individual activity from your warm-up to your tactical, from your warm-up to your tactical, small-sided, everything you do should tie into your objective.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about, today, folks, we're going to work on first touch under pressure. In our warm-up, we're going to do a ball control relay where your touch has to be spot on. We're going to work into technical. We're going to do a 1v1 where you're working on a first touch battle with your opponent there. And then we're going to have a small-sided game where you get bonus points for every great first touch that you do. Yeah. Everything we're doing there is working on what we're focusing on for that practice. In every drill, every warm-up, even when you're doing your end of practice little scrimmage, everything should still be focused on that one objective.
Yeah, absolutely, right? And you're still using that vocabulary at the end of training, right? Yeah, we might be scrimmaging at this point, or we might be full-sided, but I'm still saying, hey, Dunham, I needed you to engage there, right? Or you used the first touch example, right? Hey, Dunham, you got to catch it like it's an egg, right? You got to control that ball better, So I'm still only harping on those phrases, those words that the players have heard all session, because there's like a saying is like 50 or 10,000 repetitions before it actually sets in or something. So there's going to be almost all trainings where you leave and you may be satisfied with the progress, but it's never going to be perfect, especially where you and I coach in the grassroots side of things, right? So, but I just think what you said there is so important. Everything should link together, right? When your warm-up, your first play, your train, your second play, all those should link together. Even your warm-up.
Yes.
Now, again, I have my captain's warm-up, but even when I take over, I start with a little warm up, right? And we don't do it for very long, 5-6 minutes maybe, right? But I'm already getting them into here's what that objective is going to look like.
Yeah, and the next thing we want to focus on is preventing distractions of our focus. A lot of kids have questions, and we love the questions.
Yeah.
But if I'm working on, we're sticking with first touch here. If I'm working on first touch, and a kid comes in and says, "What about first touch in front of the goal?" Well, that's a great point.
Yeah.
But let's stay focused on first touch on the field under pressure. In another practice, we'll work on that first touch in front of goal.
Yeah.
Let's lead with this, and we'll get to that in another point. So make sure you find a way. Don't shut down their question, because we want to encourage those questions. And honestly, it's probably a great question to begin with. But make sure you loop them back around to today's focus.
Well, and I love that you said that. And oftentimes it is the kid, but I even think more often it's me, right? Where maybe we're working on breaking that final line, right? We're looking at breaking from the middle third to the attacking third. That's what our objective is that day. And so we're doing things, and maybe things are starting to click, and I have a center back who's doing something that's driving me crazy, right? You still don't want to go over and coach that, right? You still, like, I know, like, maybe it's like a 2-second, like, hey, stop doing that, right? But as soon as if you're running an attacking session, as soon as you start coaching the defense, you've lost them on that objective, right? So keep your focus as the coach on, and that's why having an assistant is great, right? I can tell my assistant, hey, this is what we're working on today. So the counterpoint to that will be the back line, right? The back line. So I want you to keep an eye on them. You're going to coach them, but I'm going to be focusing on that offensive side of the game.
And I love that you mentioned this about wanting to stop the play to fix something that may not be on topic.
Right.
So let's get into what we need to be doing when we do feel like we need to stop play. Number one, it needs to be brief. You know, you've already given a talk for the warm-up, what you're supposed to do, talk for the tactical side. All that stuff to take maybe 2 to 3 minutes, tops, but they've got to get out there and play.
Yeah.
So when you do stop them, go to those key points, maybe make a few corrections. Again, another 2 to 3 minutes. That's really the extent of what that should be. And then you get back to start. It needs to be a restart, super fast. They learn from playing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we talked about this multiple times. They can hear what you're saying, but they're not going to get it done from you saying it 1,000 times. They're going to learn from doing rather than just hearing.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, we've talked in the past about ball rolling. Hey, the ball should be rolling for the vast majority of your training sessions, right? And we both know as coaches, we both are talkers, and we what feels like 2 minutes to us is really 6 minutes, right? And so you have to be prepared. And so there's a lot of times where you want to have planned interventions, right? And so here's what I mean by that. You set up a training, and you go, okay, when this starts to go wrong, when am I going to intervene? And so I've been talking about breaking that final line, right? Breaking into the attacking third. So maybe my planned intervention is after the defense prevents it 5 times in a row, right? Okay, now it's time for me to step in and intervene, all right? Or, but you plan those interventions accordingly. So to your point, you are letting the ball roll, right? You are letting the ball roll, and it is moving. Another thing that you mentioned was the stop the play, the feedback, the loops, things like that. I also am a huge fan of, hey, Chris, come here real quick. Red, you're down a player for a bit. Right? And then now they have to adjust all of a sudden. And I can get, again, I don't want to talk to you for 4 minutes, but I can give you a quick 30-second to a minute little feedback. And then, okay, boom, you're back on. All right, now go show me. Boom, you're back on. So I like those interventions as well. But I think knowing when am I going to step in? Having that kind of in the back of your head, I think prevents us as coaches from stopping it too much, right? We've all seen those coaches that, all right, hey, play. Oh, yeah, no, wait, stop. Okay, all right, everybody got it? Okay, good, play. And then, 30 seconds later, okay, everybody stop, right? You cannot do that because you're not allowing the player to get into any rhythm to actually try to perform the task you want them to do.
And let's kind of carry off of that. Let's say every 2 minutes you are stopping it because you got to make corrections. If there's, as the coach, you've got to recognize, or I've already stopped this 4 times. Maybe they're just not getting what we're trying to focus on.
Yeah, sure.
And that's where we already talked about. You have your progression and you have your regression in that drill. Maybe you try to find a way to simplify that time of training activity.
Yeah.
And you've got to recognize that, all right, if I got to stop this one more time, I've got to just change everything up, simplify this, so we are making sure we're focused on learning today's objective.
Yeah, and those changes don't have to be much, right? They can be simple. So maybe I'm doing a 6v3 activity, right? And okay, the defense is still winning the ball a lot. Okay, well now I'm going 6v2.
Yeah,
I'm pulling a player off.
Yeah.
Or okay, the defense is getting smoked. Right, I'm going 6v4. Right, all right, give me another defender. And so just those quick, changes that you can make that do stay with the objective and do create the learning experience that you want.
Yeah, coach. And again, the coach has to be cognizant of everything that's going on in his practice. Yeah. He's got to read the energy. He's got to read, the frustrations or whatever's going on in your practice. Be aware and don't be afraid to make changes on the fly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sometimes we just got to have those little things in our back pocket before you walk into practice.
Absolutely, Coach. Coach, let's just we got a few minutes left here. Let's just kind of wrap up everything we've talked about the last 3 episodes. So again, structure, flow, intensity, and then what we're focusing on, the objective, right? So I guess my final wrap up of this would just be like, there is no such thing as a perfect training session, but what you want is to ensure that you are challenging your players, right? You want to make sure that you are creating the behavior that will help you solve the objective you set, and you want this structure that the players are used to, so you're not going to change structures every time you show up to the field, right? You're going to have a structure that flows and the players are used to and avoids a lot of time that they're just standing around while you're setting up cones or picking up cones or anything like that.
Yeah, and I guess the point I want to put across to this, coach, and I've said this every episode, I'm going to say it again, make a habit of writing down your lesson plan. When I first started coaching 20 years ago, I did not write my lesson plans down. I would try to memorize everything, and then I'd go to practice, and practice went fine. I come home, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I forgot all of that.
Yeah, the
Didn't
biggest
even
thing
cross my mind. Yeah. I'm like, oh, I'm at that point I wanted to get across, or I want to end practice with this, example or scenario, and it completely left my brain. But now I've got that in my pocket every single practice. And I'm looking at it to make sure, even though I know what I want to say,
absolutely,
I'm just reassuring, I got it covered. I know what I'm talking about in this practice.
Yeah, absolutely. And does it require a little more time in our day to plan and get? Of course it does. But that's what makes us good coaches, right? That's what makes us great coaches. That's where they come from. Is they do take that time to plan in advance. But focus on the structure. Have a routine structure that your players are like, oh, we just did a play, now we're getting ready to train, or oh, we just did our warm up, we're getting ready to do some sort of play, right? They should know. They should know what's coming next. With the intensity, you have to be aware of where you are in your week. You have to be aware of what else is going on. But you have to challenge them with that intensity at training too, right? You can't let it drop below your standard. There has to be a standard that you have to hold everybody to, including yourself. Because even as coaches, we have days where we're like, oh man, I gotta go to soccer now, right? Just had a horrible day at work, and now I got to go sit on the soccer field for an hour and a half. So making sure we set that standard of intensity and focus, and then just having that objective. What are we working on this session, and making sure we don't stray from it?
Yeah, the other thing we want to throw in there, don't be afraid to experiment a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, your kids want to be challenged.
Mm-hmm.
They want to say, all right, I can do some of the basics, but now let's use our progression.
Yep.
And let's change things up a little bit, still focusing on that one area.
Yeah.
But I'm going to try, hey, we're going to do one touch today.
Yep.
We've never done it before, but I want you guys to try one touch. Don't get frustrated. And you're going to make a lot of mistakes,
Yeah.
and that is okay. Or maybe they're U12 and it's their first season of headers. Mix that in as much as you can. Experiment as much as you can, and try to understand what your players get engaged more with and what they're less desirable to get involved on.
Yeah, and so real quickly, just want to hit a point, and then we'll wrap it up, Coach. But I love what you said there, like with those progressions. So one of the things that you did when I was your assistant at Central that I loved was, of course, you know, everybody kind of plays possession when they open their session, right? You're playing 6v6 or whatever possession. But I love, you would play for about 10 minutes, but after the first 3 minutes, you would say, okay, hey, 2-touch only. And then they would have to go 2-touch only. And then if they took a third touch, you'd be like, hey, ball, turn it over, right? And then the last 4 minutes, then you play 3 minutes, and then however it was, but you would go 1-touch only. And then seeing the chaos that creates, right? Because now I've brought in, I took my touch already, so now I'm shielding, right? Waiting for a teammate to come and collect that ball. So now I'm bringing in other aspects of the game as well that maybe we're not coaching, maybe we're not harping on, but we are creating them within our session. One of the things I like to do, especially in a passing pattern on Thursday nights, we do a technical session, and we usually end with some sort of passing pattern. Throw in a second ball and watch what ensues.
Yes.
Right? When they're pinging that first ball around and they got it, okay, here, play this one, go.
Mm-hmm.
Now watch what happens. Because you want to talk about chaos and panic. And so, Coach, really fun series. I love doing this.
Let me add something that real quick. Yeah. We talked about, getting those key points in. If you're going to stop playing, make it brief and get in the play. One thing I learned, especially when I was in high school, sometimes it's better to just not say anything.
Yes.
And see if the players work the problem. There were so many times, and it took me a year or two to grasp this concept and kind of back away.
Yep.
And this may not be a thing you do with the young players like 10 and under because they're still trying to figure those skills out. But definitely at the high school level, it would not be unusual where I would let them play for 15 minutes and not say a word.
Yep.
And no matter how frustrated I was in my brain, I would say, they're going to figure it out. Give it a second.
Yep, absolutely. And you would be surprised on how often they do figure it out. It just takes them a bit, right? Coach, really fun series. Working with the training session build up. Again, we kind of built ours around an hour training session. But, if you're lucky enough to have more, just extend those times. Or we have to make our sessions fun and engaging as well, right? So if you get longer than an hour, build in some sort of team bonding activity, or just a simple relay race or whatever it is, right? Just, that they all just love, and no matter what the age. Before we sign off, Coach, I love this quote that you found. A great session isn't just about the drills. It's about the experience you create for your players. You want your players to step off the field thinking, I can't wait for Thursday because we get to come back out here. Coach Dunham, Coach Hamilton, this has been the Friday Footy Talk. We are the Ace Football Academy. Go kick some ace.